Welcome to the Starter Girlz podcast, the show dedicated to the Starter Girl. She's an achiever, she's a creator, she's a magic maker, she's a dreamer, and she is doing all the things. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and welcome to this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you here. And as I always say on the Starter Girlz, this show is all about inspiring you to be the most effective leader in all the areas of your life. And that's your health, your well-being, your relationships, your money, and your career. So I'm excited about my guest today. With over a decade thriving in the business world and 2 decades deeply ingrained in wellness and beauty, she proudly holds an accreditation from the International Coaching Federation. Additionally, she is a certified aromatherapist. I can't say all these words today. They're like big words for me. And possesses a license in aesthetic science. Her expertise is a unique fusion honed through years of experience in aromatics and lifestyle coaching. As the visionary creator behind Aromatic reading, she offers a unique botanical card reading experience, delving into the multidimensional aspects of human existence through the lens of the 5 pillars of life. So welcome to the show, Monselete Bowden. So excited to have you here today and chat with you. It's going to be fun.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be so much fun.
It's so funny. Like I'm reading all these and for whatever reason, I cannot talk today. Apparently I just like talk too much. And sometimes those words sort of get like twisted on my tongue. It's great.
No worries. No judgment here.
Yeah. You have a great bio here. So excited to chat with you. I know this has kind of been a long awaited, episode because we talked a while back. And so we're finally getting to jump on here and learn about what you're doing. And so I want to kind of open this up a little bit because aromatic readings, what is that all about? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So an aromatic reading is something that I developed sort of as a tool or a modality within my coaching. And it's basically a virtual experience where we use botanical cards that I've created. And we try to search and look for the imbalance in the 5 pillars. And the 5 pillars are being kind of what you just mentioned, well-being, prosperity, relationships, career, spirituality. So through the reading, we look for the imbalances, and then you end up getting mailed to you what I call a roll-on botanical, but it's actually a essential oil blend that gets delivered to you, and that becomes sort of your aromatic anchor to utilize and help support that imbalanced area in your life.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and I know we talked right before the show that like I have my oils that I like to use. So I'm like envisioning this. So you're kind of preparing this in advance for them. Is it sort of like before you have this initial consultation with them and then you sort of prepare this for them and send that to them?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I've developed within the reading of 10 blends that support each category. So there's 2 for every category. And I do small batches and develop them, but it's not customized. Like it's customized to a degree in the category, but if you wanted one-on-one more customization, you could have that.
Gotcha.
But this is just sort of your standard, the sort of initial session into allowing yourself to use roll-on botanicals and smell and scent to sort of elevate your mood.
Yeah,
that's
and
sort
I
of the
saw
initial
that.
step. Yeah,
because I was looking at your profile and talking about the smell, the scent, and how does it get you out of your head and into your body. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Because we know scents are powerful, right?
Yeah. So, a lot of my clients are high functioning, successful, they're business owners, they're creative professionals, but they all share one thing in common, which is they stay in their head a lot of their time. Like they're just always in their head. Right. And I think a lot of us are that's just how we are. If we're goal-oriented people, we're in our head, we're doers. And so what's great about smell is when the minute we smell anything, it doesn't even have to be necessarily something from nature, but the minute we smell something, it connects us right to our body because it goes straight to the olfactory system, into our limbic system. And our limbic system is where we smell, where we feel. That's why when you smell something, you have a memory a lot of the time connected to that smell. And so what's really cool is that, when you're overthinking and when you're disconnected to your body, I can give you something, or you have something that you can open up, immediately begin inhaling and then applying. And we've gotten you immediately out of your head and into your body. We've kind of almost created like an interception, a pattern interrupt from the molecules of the scent. And if we can get you into your body, all of a sudden you're going to start thinking differently.
Right. It's almost like you're grounding is basically what you're doing in a sense, right? And as you're talking about this, it's so interesting because you were talking about, how we smell something and it can take us back. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like we had, and this is totally off the wall, but when I was a kid, we had this dog, and whenever it would rain, that dog did not smell good. He would stay outside. So every once in a while I could smell that scent outside and I'll be like, that reminds me of that dog when I was growing. I love that dog, by the way, but he just did not smell good when he would get wet. So you are so true when you say that, scents can bring us out of our head and take us into a different place, right? Because we do it all the time. If we have a bad smell, a good smell, we associate things. And so, yeah, I could see that being a really powerful tool. And you're right, because I also work with a lot of creatives and achievers. And yes, all of us, I think, share that we're all in our heads and have to work, be very diligent, I can't talk today, about pulling ourselves out of that space and grounding as you're doing, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's easy. I mean, the nose is in the middle of the face. So even if we're eating or breathing, we're smelling without realizing it. Yeah. And I think that, when we look around sort of right now in the world, everything is sort of very tech minded. There's tips, there's techniques, there's the steps you've got to do. And I think that a lot of times people are so hyper focused on meeting a goal and then they don't meet it. And even in coaching, we say, coach the person, not the problem.
Right.
And so what's really great is, when you're able to start coaching the person and you bring in the sensory of smell, all of a sudden their essence of who they are starts to change, right? I mean, plants are essence. And we can begin thinking about, this isn't so much, what's the goal I want to attain, but it's how now is the shift in my mindset changed, and me being in my body and smelling and being connected, how is that creating a different way that I want to show up to even do the goal?
Yeah. And there's power in that. Like yesterday, I was going through a somatic release class, and it was a 40-minute demonstration. And, you think that these, as I mentioned to you earlier, bringing in all these different modalities, you think they're so trivial, but the power of them is so powerful, right? So I'm going through this whole somatic release class yesterday, about 40 minutes of this. And at the beginning of this, I'm thinking, okay, she's got us standing here and we're just grounding. And I'm thinking, okay, I do this kind of stuff all the time, right? Like I get it. And then she's got us doing these things where we're squeezing our arms to kind of get the blood flowing, right? And then she's got us doing these butterfly things. And by the end of this thing, it was 40 minutes into this, I'm like, wow. Like I was so calm. I was like in a different place. I mean, I wasn't super high intense when I started because it was on Sunday morning. I'm like, I got to go through this. I want to check this out, see what this is all about. But I was kind of in a different space when I finished this. And so sometimes you think these modalities that we're doing, we don't want to take the time to do these things for ourselves, right? Because we really don't understand how powerful they are. But when you go through these, whatever that is, whether you're doing what you're talking about, if we're doing EFT tap, whatever that is that we're doing, this somatic release stuff, whatever, it is so powerful when you come on the other side and when you continue doing those things over and over and over.
I absolutely agree. And I think that combining all of them, right, is key. Now you've got multiple choices in your toolbox of different ways you can begin to relax or become grounded. Maybe it's through meditation, but maybe that doesn't work. So maybe it's through scent, or maybe it's through body work. So, right. Having all these different opportunities. And, it's interesting because something that I find is if you even back up further to even start taking those steps, like you said, of trying these different things, I've noticed people have to feel good. They have to feel good to then want to take that step.
Yes.
And that was another sort of, I think, catalyst behind me doing this aromatic reading and doing this role on botanical was I knew that scent can just make you feel better.
Yeah.
And if you can just feel better, then that is going to be your catalyst to begin making those changes, where I think so many people get stuck. They can't seem to get to the gym, or they can't get to there. And so if we can calm the nervous system, if we can lower the stress, if we can bring down the cortisol, if we can begin just making you feel better, your whole world opens up.
It's interesting that you bring that up too, and I agree with you on that. And it's interesting that you say that because I feel like a lot of the people that come to me, even though we're talking about business, we get to the fitness conversation comes up a lot. And a lot of that is because I am a fitness person. I work out every day. I was a marathon runner. Fitness and well-being, I think, are the most essential things that you can do for yourself. Because I think when you get these two things in right place, all the other things start flowing more freely for you. But I agree with you 100%. You got to start somewhere and it has to feel right. And the fitness thing comes up a lot. And you're going to probably appreciate this because I have these conversations with people where they come to me and they have these metrics that they place on themselves. They say, I need to go to the gym 3 days a week. I want to work out for this long. And I'm like, whoa, 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 just stop right now. For my first question, did you go to the gym when you were a child? Did y'all grow up doing this kind of, were y'all active when you were a child? Because now you're trying to implement all this crazy that you've never done. And you're like trying to have some kind of osmosis results here. It's probably not going to happen. It might short term, but it's going to crash. We have to make it right. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to these people, I will tell them, let's let go of the metrics. Let's let go of what this should look like. And let's find something you enjoy doing. You know, I had a client I worked with for a while that was one of the things we talked about. And it ended up being that she found different things. She ended up joining a kickball league for a short time. Then she was going to like one of those arcade places for adults, like a Dave and Buster's that they have down here or something. And she was doing the Dance Revolution thing and she enjoyed it. And she said, I'm sweating and I like it. And so I told her, I said, you're actually kind of exercising when you do that. You're moving your body, you know? And so I think you're right on when you say it has to create something feel good because we try to do things that don't feel good. And then we beat ourselves up for not succeeding at these things. Yeah, we do have to have discipline. But let's do this within reason so you actually can succeed and not set yourself up for a repetitive pattern of failure, right? Like, let's make this work for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. And, you know, it's funny. It's like, oh, it's as you were describing the person that's setting up all the metrics, but they've never even done it before. It's like, I'm going to run a marathon and I'm going to do it tomorrow, even though I've never trained.
Yeah. No, don't do that. We don't recommend that.
Yeah. And I don't know what that is about. You know, is that because that's what people are seeing? That's, you know, to be successful, you wake up at 5 a.m. and you do these 10 things. You know, I don't know where that comes from or if that's just us setting the bar really high for ourselves. But I agree. I think that you have to take small steps, but I think it even goes back even further. With some of my clients, we'll start with, you know, what's your own personal mission statement? Mm-hmm. You know, maybe your own personal mission statement isn't, I want to be a marathon runner. Maybe it's, I just want to do somatic stretching. I want to take a leisurely walk on the weekends and only on the weekends. You know, I think if we can start defining how do we want to be, who do we want to be in this life, that can start setting the stage for then how do we go about that life?
Agree. Yeah, 100%. And I think that gets back to, that's our priorities and core values, right? It's like, I was on a show a couple weeks ago, and that was one of the things we were talking about. I was talking about the difference between what I feel like are successful people, because this is one of the questions I used to ask on my other show all the time. Like, how do you define success? And I would get kind of the same thing from entrepreneurs. It's being able to do passionately what I love, right? Make money. That's kind of the universal thing. But I think it goes even deeper than that. I think it goes to living your life in alignment with your values and your priorities, how you see yourself living, but then continuing to grow and finding a way to use all this to give back in some form or fashion. So I think it's a three-pronged formula here. But I think it starts with what you're talking about, getting back to aligning what are your values, because I think so often when we are out of alignment and having all this, you know, these so-called crazy metrics, it's because we don't know what that is, or we've strayed away from it, right? Like we're doing what we think we should be doing or what somebody else thinks we should be doing. And there's a lot of inner turmoil going on, right? And when we get back to that place, we get sort of grounded, as you're talking about, in our mind, right? We get grounded and we can flow. I think I like to say flow more freely about the cabin. You know, we can move without restriction, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny you say values, because I think too, we forget values change.
Right.
If your values in your 20s is you have a child and you're raising your child and you're a mom, that's probably a big value and priority. But when that child leaves home, your priorities and values are probably going to shift a little. And so I think it's also being open to saying, hey, it's okay that my values change, my commitments change. And, you know, when do I look at those? Maybe it's every 10 years, maybe it's every 5, maybe it's when a big thing's happened in your life. I don't have that answer, right? Because it's individual, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to know that values change. Sometimes people are still trying to hold on to the values that they had 30 years ago, and they're just not working for them anymore. And so maybe that's what we've got to look at.
I agree. And I just had this conversation this morning with my husband because of this crazy medical condition I have. I'm realizing that I can't work out. I work out every day still, but I have to do different things. I can't go out and run 10 miles. I would, back when I was training for a marathon, we were running easily 50 miles a week. We were pushing. If I get out and do a 2-mile run for the day, I'm pretty excited because my body cooperated enough not to be feeling like it's dying, And so one of the conversations I had with him this morning was a couple things. It was, okay, this is how I see myself, right? But reality says, Jennifer, you got a problem. You can't do this. You're going to have to live. You're going to have to make some modifications, right? And so I think it's coming to terms with that. Yes, reevaluating, because what I did in my 30s, I'm in my 50s now. And although I'm physically, my blood work, everything is great. I've got these parameters that say, hey, you can't do this kind of working out every single day. You hurt when you do it. You've got to take a break. And so, yeah, I think it's like you're saying, it's reassessing those priorities. When I was in my 30s, I could do all that. 50s, maybe I'm in a different place. But how can I find that happy balance? I hate the word balance. Let's say happy harmony spot between that, right? And get in alignment with that. And that's what I try to strive for every day, is to say, look, my value is that I want to be able to work out every day, keep my body moving. Okay, that doesn't mean I need to go run 5 miles every single day to do that. That means one day maybe I can go on the elliptical. One day maybe I'm going to dance. One day I'm maybe do meditation. I don't know, Next day it might be we're just going to do weights today, But being okay with reassessing those priorities and putting them in alignment with where you are at that time.
Entrepreneurs, are you ready to level up your leadership skills? Tune in now for an exclusive offer designed just for you. This is my time. Did you know 63% of consumers prefer businesses aligned with their values? Recognizing your core values isn't just vital for business growth, it's the bedrock of effective leadership. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or an aspiring creator, identifying your core values is a key step in constructing the framework of a successful leader, enabling you to lead authentically, expand your business, and live life on your terms. I go 100 all day, foot on the pedal, no brakes. 10, 9, paid on my dues, waited in line, 8, 7. Are you ready to access tools to kickstart your leadership journey? Unlock a treasure trove of insights and get your free resources at www.linktree/Jennifer Loehding. Take that crucial first step toward realizing your leadership aspirations and elevate your leadership game today. Ready to shine.
And, you just made me think of another piece, which is, I think it's also about having, just in addition to that, there's also this having a conversation with yourself. As you said, sometimes you get clients who are like, okay, here's all these metrics, I'm going to hit them. And it's like, but if you've never done that in your life, is there a conversation that we need to have with ourselves that say, okay, I'm just this kind of a person, and how do I acknowledge my weaknesses?
Yeah.
And be aware of what they are so I can use them as strengths. Like for me, there's just certain things I can't have in the house or I'm going to eat it. And I could do this thing every week. Well, this time will be different. I'm going to be much better this time. But no, I've accepted I don't have that willpower. So just don't have it in the house. And so there's something really, I think, exciting and kind of liberating when you can sort of take ownership of like where those weaknesses are in your life.
I agree.
Versus trying to keep changing it, and I see that a lot too, where it's like some of these things that we have, they've been here our whole life. And now we're 50 and we're trying to say, hey, I'm going to find this willpower. It's like, or you could just accept you don't, and then figure out how your life looks without having that.
I agree. Yeah. You've got to be aware of your weaknesses. I think that they can become your biggest help and your strengths when you really realize that this is probably not an area that I'm, super strong in. And how do I make sure that I focus on the things that I am good in and not contribute to those pieces that I'm not? I like that. And it's great.
Yeah.
I talk about that with my people a lot too. It's like owning those things, Like
I think that's where sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I think that's where we get into trouble when we have a lot of the sort of techniques now, because we're tech minded, obsessed with, here's 3 steps to be successful. Here's 4 steps. It's like, okay, but they may not be your steps.
Right. Yeah. No, and
which
you're
could
right.
be why you're not succeeding at it.
Yeah, because you keep trying to do something that you're not good at, right? It's funny you say this because I've had because when you get creator people, I've had a lot of creator type of people that are not really like morning people. They're kind of night people. Now, I used to be a night person. I am a morning person. Like I'm up at 5, 6 every day, ready to go. There is a book called The Power of When, WHEN. It's by the sleep doctor. And he talks about how we operate on circadian rhythms. And so there's basically, I don't know if you read, there's like 4 animals. I've talked about it for our guests on plenty of podcasts. But to your point, I would have these clients that be like, they are most effective in the evening. That's when they do their greatest creative thinking. They're on point. Me on the opposite, I'm on the opposite. If I need to get anything done, it needs to happen early in the day, because by the end of the day, I'm probably going to get stupid. I don't want to be signing contracts because I'm just going to be out of it. But my point to this is these clients would insist that they needed to be up at 5 o'clock because they hear early bird gets the worm, the 5 a.m. club, right? Everybody that's successful gets up at 5 a.m. And while I do think there is a lot of truth to people that get up early, they get a lot done. I think, again, you've got to recognize where your strengths are. And this doesn't mean sleep all day and then do nothing. If you are most effective at doing what you do for your career or whatever that is in the evening, and that is your best time, why not utilize the place where you are the most effective to do the work and stop trying to fight it, right? I've had this conversation and I've had to tell people, I don't ever like to tell anybody what to do because we know as coaches, it has to be their idea. So we always have to let them figure it out, right? And then they come back and they'll be like, oh, that didn't work. And I'm like, yeah, I could have told you that in the beginning, but okay. Right? So I let them go. And then they'll have this light bulb moment where they come back and they're like, well, I was doing this and that didn't work. And I'm like, oh, yeah, how did that start? I guess we're not doing that anymore. We're just going to go back to what was working for you,
Yeah. I had a client and she said her most productive time was at night between 10 and midnight.
Wow.
But yet she was trying to get up earlier. Mm-hmm. But what she found was she's now going to bed when she's really at her most creative. So she's sleeping through her most creative, productive time. And so again, like you said, I didn't read that book, but I've read a lot on the sleep sort of cycles. And it really is true. I think we have to sort of tune out what is going on around us and really get to know ourselves. And I think a lot of people have forgotten how to do that, which comes back to getting out of your head, getting into your body. Really try to begin understanding who you are, what your cycles are, how you function, because otherwise we spend our whole life trying to fit in a mold that isn't fitting for us.
Yeah. I like where you're coming from on all this, because I think you and I share some passion in that. It's really not. And I think when you talk about that, like why it's like, I think there's just so many outside influences. You mentioned it earlier, do these 3 steps. You hear this person. I just almost cringe when let's learn another technique or let's hire another fitness coach. And I'm not against fitness coaches. I do think they're important. And I think if you need to get fit, go get them. But we also know, like, I've been at the same gym for 12 years. I was the one before that, 4 years before they closed. Like, I don't waste a gym membership. You know how many people start gym memberships and never use them, because it is a cycle. We have to get grounded in who we are, our priorities, and work on all the head junk. And then all these other things we attempt to do, I think they're not that they're always easy, but they're going to flow more freely for you. Because I think the better, as you're talking about, the better we feel about things and the better we get about things, the more inclined we are to try new experiences and really make different choices. Like it's hard to choose to eat right if there's a lot of things in our life that are chaotic, right? But if we're starting to get things under I don't want to say control, but in harmony with us, we may make a different choice. And maybe tomorrow we say, hey, things are going pretty well. Maybe I want to start exercising. Or, hey, things are going pretty well. Maybe I want to pick up meditation. Or, you know what I mean? It's hard to take somebody who's never done all those. I mean, I always use my story as a really good example, because I wasn't always like I am. And I don't think any of us really were. I mean, I was in Mary Kay for 22 years. 17 of those years, I had positive influences. I mean, I had mentors. I heard it all. Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell. I mean, all of it. And every day I was still living in chaos, like every day. It wasn't until 2012 I had this rare nerve condition pop up out of somewhere. And then I started really scoping and honing in on there's a pattern here, bad choices I'm making, and they're contributing to like what's going on. And that wouldn't have even happened had I not had a holistic practitioner say to me, what was going on in your life at the time this happened? Had I not had that moment where he did that and I got mad and thought for a moment, I didn't cause this because I didn't want to take any ownership. And then to be able to say from that, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I didn't like where I was. And to say, how do I make different choices? So this is all a process of little steps, micro steps, step by step. But I agree with everything you're talking about and doing. And I love that you're talking about making experiences feel good for them, that they can associate a positive feeling with this whole getting in alignment, which is what we're talking about. I think the whole thing is about alignment.
Yeah. It's funny you're sharing your story, because I think that, I've had this experience where I think I can compartmentalize. And I mean, men are great at compartmentalizing your career from maybe how you really want to be aligned. And I think a lot of us are taught, especially, in our generation, I think we're taught to compartmentalize our feelings, compartmentalize where we are aligned. And I think because of that, it's taken me years to figure out, when I look back, I'm like, oh, I was having those feelings because I wasn't aligned with what my profession was.
Right.
Oh, but the reality is we can't compartmentalize. Our body is an entire whole. And as much and as great as we have specialists now that, you can go to a specialist for anything.
Everything.
I don't know how great it is that we're isolating these single items into, deducing them to one thing unless they're all having conversations with each other, because it's all connected. And you can't say that this one thing isn't functioning. And because this one thing isn't functioning, it's not affecting anything else in the orbit of the whole body, whether it's physical, psychological, mental, right? And so I think that that's also really important for me, is saying, we're all connected and we can't disassociate. The minute that we stay in our head and we don't keep connected to our body is when I do think we're not going to know if disease is popping up because we aren't connected to feel it, right? And so, it even makes me think about sort of the gut, now the gut's the second brain. So think about how off your micro might be in your gut. So if that's completely off, you're definitely not going to be connected down there. So how do we start thinking of our whole body and our whole psychological, I think, beings as a whole is important.
It's a big conversation. I agree with you. I think that we so often think that, I don't know how we don't. I'm like you. I don't know how you don't. I don't know how you don't think about the food you put in your mouth and think it's connected to anything in your body. It's affecting hormones and things in your body, and that affects your brain and your gut and everything. So everything is connected. The ground, we're all connected in some way. And everything that we do, we see, we consume, all of it affects us in some way. And so I'm with you. It's a fun conversation. I always enjoy these conversations with people that I feel like are sort of on that same. It's sometimes not an easy conversation when people don't quite get it, but I think sometimes they don't because they just haven't had enough exposure to it. If you would have said this stuff to me, maybe 15 years ago, I would have been like, okay, what? Yeah. What's that about? Right. I mean, it had to come down to a lot of soul searching and really digging. And so I even when I talk about conditions, I got diagnosed with one thing, then I get diagnosed with something else. They're both somehow I think are nerve related, two different things, but I swear they're connected. I'm like, if you figure out this and this, you're going to probably figure out the big picture of it all, And so I agree with you on all of it. I want to ask you kind of a fun question, because I know, you coming from the business world and you have kind of a background in this beauty and wellness and all of that. So I'm curious because I don't know all of your story, but sort of like what led you to this moment, like the studying the coaching and getting in. I mean, obviously the beauty, I get that part of it coming in, but you're in the business world before that.
Yeah. So, well, I guess let me go back over 20 years ago. I was introduced to essential oils, and then I fell in love with that. And so late 90s, I got certified. I started doing, treatments with essential oils. That led me into aesthetics, beauty. And then I got on the business side of that because I came from entrepreneurs. I always grew up with my family owning businesses. So it was just like very easy for me to understand how to do that. And, but it's funny is I was in my passion, doing my passion. And after about 12 or 13 years, I got so burnt out because I didn't know how to take a break. I didn't know how to separate my personal life from my business life because it was my passion that I walked away. And then I just kind of stayed. I moved into the financial sector and I was just doing business operations, building business. And during all of that, I was coaching. And so I think my first coaching class was in 2007 at NYU. And I really fell in love with it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to continue doing internal coaching within business. And the company then I went on to work for, I continued to coach. I mean, it's really interesting how coaching's happening in your business without realizing it. Right. But I was able to do more of it. And then during the pandemic, actually, I was like, I really want to do more coaching. So I went back, got some more certifications, started taking on private clients. They were all business clients, a small business owner, successful. But for me, something was missing. And I was thinking, gosh, I want to do something in wellness again. That's my background. That's my passion. But I didn't want to be a health coach. I didn't want to be, fitness, although I do both those things. I love them, but I didn't want to do them. Right. And I thought, what else could I do? And so I thought, well, let me go back to the basics, what I know, which is oils. And I also knew that I really wanted to help people on a cellular level. And so that's sort of what got me to this point was being able to find another way to integrate something that would be wellness related into coaching to help people, I think, on a cellular level. And also, I think it kind of helps speed up their journey to where they're trying to get to. Yeah.
I love it. I'm getting chills listening to you because I feel like you and I share sort of, we're different, right? But I feel like our passions are very similar because my background is wellness. I was in the beauty for a long time too. Yeah. But interestingly enough, as this whole time I've been coaching, because you talked about coaching, you didn't realize how you're coaching. I did 22 years of Mary Kay. We did a lot of coaching. I feel like anytime we're working with women, I say this and I laugh, there's therapy involved. We were doing lots of coaching. But interestingly enough, I love helping people, but I keep getting drawn back into the wellness side of things. Really, how do I figure out? And so that's why I started, as I mentioned to you before the show, started studying the NeuroFit because I wanted to really find a way to, how do I take the coaching experience and accelerate that for them by helping them? What you're kind of doing the same thing, regulate their nervous system. It's just a different modality, but it's the same kind of concept of how can I get them? And the thing I love about that is it's quick, easy things they can do. I mean, like just, on this call right now, splashing cold water on your face is a really good way to stimulate your nervous, your nervous. I can't even talk.
And it's free. Like you don't have to buy anything.
But that's the thing. I think you and I share this whole idea that we're more about how do we get to the root of helping people be regulated so that all of these things that we're helping them with in their lives will actually adhere better. They're going to have a more positive experience and they're going to be more receptive to wanting to create positive change in their life.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to guess who your clients are, but for me, every one of my clients was always in their head. Yeah. I mean, just really smart in their head, always thinking, cannot turn it off. Yeah. And it sounds to me that might be a lot of your people. And so seeing that is like, how do I get these people back into their body, without, for me, it was, I had a severe head injury. I ended up having a severe concussion and that knocked me, I literally went from being that doer always in my head to being like, oh, I can't do anything. I'm not allowed to have any stimulation for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And that really made me rethink what I was doing and how I was doing it,
So interesting. Well, I am so grateful for you jumping on here and I love what you're doing. And I hope it continues to bless you and your clients and go in all the right directions. I think what you're doing is awesome. And I'm sure it's making a difference for those people that are part of your practice and your work. So we appreciate you. If our audience, obviously I'm hoping this is going to be one of those things where people are like, what is this all about? Right. So if they listen to this and they go, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more about, this aromatic therapy and all of that, where do we want to send them?
Yeah. So they can go to my website, which is monselete.com. I'll spell it for those listening. MONSELETE.com. And if they want more of a visual, like what are these cards? What's going on? Instagram is great. So I'm at Monselete on Instagram. Just again, my name, MONSELETE.
There you good. I like it. If they can get that right, they got it. It's easy, right? It's like my last name is like that. It's like it's Jennifer's easy. You get to the last name. It's like I always have to spell it out because
Yeah.
they're going to get it wrong. Phonetically, it's easy, but the spelling part's not. So, well, this has been awesome. I'm so grateful that you were able to jump on here and contribute, to this project. And hopefully we're inspiring women to do great things. We inspire the men too, but I'm passionate about helping women because I think that we are in our heads a lot.
Yes.
And all of this stuff is good for helping us remove ourselves out of that. So thank you for your time. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And of course, to our fabulous listeners, we appreciate you and are grateful that you are here. If you enjoy the show, head over to Apple, give us a review there. You can hit the subscribe button on YouTube so we can keep sharing all this fabulous content. And as I always say, be kind to yourself and be kind to one another. And we will see you next time.